is telling us as men to be common, to fall in line, to fall short of any visions or plans God has for us. But what about being uncommon? This is a movement of men seeking to build an eternal legacy. A journey of men on mission to rise above the common, to experience sustainable life change. This is Uncommon Disciple. Welcome, everyone, to the Uncommon Disciple podcast with your host, Michael Bowen, Jared Gibson, and our very special guest, Keith Gallo.
Woo-hoo.
Keith is a church planner, entrepreneur. He is the founder and CEO of IKON Windows and Doors in Space Coast, Florida. And he's a good friend of mine. We just spent a week up in Keystone with our families, snowboarding this week, and I'm just grateful to have him here. So welcome, Keith.
Stoked to be here and really blessed, just the history. I think when we just turn the clocks back a little bit and you see brothers just linking in for a while, you know what I mean? I feel that way with you. And sometimes we just, what's going on in life and years pass, but we come back together and here we are.
Yeah.
Right.
I was trying to figure it out, Jared, while we were up in the mountains, how long Keith and I have known each other. And I think I met him just before he got married. And we came from the same church in New Jersey. And I think just about a year later, he went off and planted, was it Calvary Port Orange at that time? You did not plant Calvary Port Orange at that time.
No, that we actually moved to Florida.
That's right.
At that time. And really far later, after we had been in Florida, 2012 is when we got into God speaking to us about planting a church.
Yeah. So
timelines, I might, that's where I kind of wait on the wifey for the timelines, birthdays and all this stuff. But some of them I got figured out.
Sure. It's interesting because you guys move probably just as much as we move.
17 years of marriage coming up on this one here, 17 on June 17th. So it's supposed to be a special one. I think we've moved 8 times, maybe 9 in 17 years. So that's a lot.
Good grief.
So What about you guys? I mean, you're kind of about this, maybe more.
Yeah. Well, so we left New Jersey in 2008, if you remember, and we came here to Castle Rock, Colorado, where we're at again. And then in 2012, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, all found in the Brave book, obviously. And we went back to New Jersey. We're there, I think, for 3 years, and then moved to Florida in 2015. And we were going there to plant a church, if you remember.
Yep.
And
driving around the state.
Yeah. Well, just as we arrived in Florida is when we got the news of the pastor in Flagler Beach having a moral failing.
That's right.
And they said, "Hey, can you come down and teach?" And then that ended up being my home for about a year.
Right.
And you came down and you preached, I think, down there a couple times and did some worship conferences with us.
Yeah.
And it was a good time. And you were full on in with your church plan at that time.
That's right. It was crazy times. I can't even believe that somehow we intersected paths at that time. I mean, it's almost like a blur,
So it's interesting that, God brought us back to this point. So how we got here tonight, just to give Jared some background. Usually I give Jared some backfill before we come into a podcast, but he's got none now. So he's just going to be looking at us like we're just crazy aliens right now.
We set you up for failure.
Yeah. So it must have been, I think, about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. Keith says, "Hey, we're thinking about coming to Colorado." And Keith's a little all over the board. If you guys will see on the video, if you watch him, he jumps at the things that he does. And he says, "Yeah, we're thinking about coming to Colorado. We want to go snowboarding." And then I didn't hear from him for a little while. And he's like, "Yeah, we're coming. Book us a house."
Let's go.
So we booked a house in Keystone and here he was. And we spent a week together. So, but we hadn't seen each other for, I think it was quite a few years, like 5 or 6 years.
It's been a while.
At least, if not more. And it's just, we picked up right where we left off, which was kind of awesome. And so what I learned about Keith is he's always been a way better surfer than I've been, right? So I'm always humbled when we lived in Florida together, we'd go out surfing and he'd just be ripping it and I'd be out there.
He'd be breaking boards and stuff like that. So he never had a chance to actually really go against me because he was trying to big airs and all this. So.
So then we go snowboarding, right? And I'm kind of if I compare it to surfing, right? I'm kind of the longboarder. I just kind of cruising. Keith's up there, doing these, switch ups and, trying to do launch off of these jumps.
Back.
And he's in his 40s. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing, bro? And
exactly.
then, of course, the next morning he wakes up and throws his back out. So that's
it.
That's what you get for trying to stay 20 years old. So
It's
hey,
all good. I'm willing to deal with it,
let's
let's just
get into some topics that are going to bless some guys that are listening in tonight. So, I gave you some backfill as to what we talk about here in the Uncommon Disciple podcast. And, we're looking to exhort and encourage guys in their walk with Christ, but also, give them some insight into what guys like you're set apart. You're doing stuff that's not common in the world. As it relates to, you planted a church in Calvary Port Orange. You felt like God was telling you to turn that church over, which you did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for any, sin or anything. You love planning a church and starting, and God was calling you to plant another one down south. And then you ended up starting a business, which you were already in that industry. But man, I've known a couple of guys, especially during this time of COVID, that have stepped out and launched out into new careers, or have taken a step of faith and said, you know what, I believe God is calling me to launch off on a new business. And that's what he called you to do. And it's scary, right? To just say, hey, listen, I'm going to leave something that I'm very comfortable with, a paycheck, a guaranteed paycheck. Yeah. And you kind of worked on commission, right? In windows and doors. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But you rocked it. You were in your industry for a very long time. And then launch off into your own business. Yeah. And so I want you to speak to that a little bit. And then also what I found interesting is Keith and I were catching up, as God had him in this time of planning a church. He gave him a lot of resources and tools, discipleship programs, not only for men, but for his kids. And we had dug into some items with the kids, that 3-tier discipleship model that you're doing with your kids that I thought was pretty awesome. And I think it might help some guys out. So let's dig in. The step of faith to go out and start your own business.
Yeah. So actually, let me just rewind for a second here. So I think, if you just kind of roll the clocks back even further, just back to the Jersey days, I'm sitting here staring at a sticker. I'm guessing this is your flask over here. It says Connect Conference.
That's from our Calvary, Cornerstone Calvary.
Yeah.
That's
boom. So, that's where I grew up and was in, dirty Jersey. And just thinking back to when the Lord really just rescued me and finally got my attention, because, you got to get to the end at some point. You just have to, there's got to be a need. Okay, I've tried it all. And now what's next? And
some people call that hitting bottom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, whatever it is for each individual, but for me, it was finally the aha moment, and not going to go into that tonight exactly. But from that time forward, all I wanted to do was just serve the Lord. I wanted it. So we started with Christian Surfers. If you remember that, Jersey Shore.
For sure.
So that was like one of the first things. But actually, I started with the tape ministry at Fellowship Chapel. That's really going back when they had cassette tapes and all of that. But then we just would naturally start things. If God was in it, let's go. Yes. And we had resolve immediately, and we're not looking back. We're going ahead, and we feel like we're fueled by the Spirit. So let's go, So a lot of that leading to, planning a church, but also the business. And in a God sort of way, in fact, I didn't want to start a business. In the very same sense, I didn't want to start a church. No, God, it's too difficult. I can't handle it. The weight's too much. It's too frustrating. Where's all my hair? Everything's gray. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just, what you're getting into. I remember talking to John Durante, and he's like, it's okay. God's got your back kind of a thing. And he's in it. And I'm like, I get all of that, but it's just, I can see the frustration ahead, and I could see just the victories, but also the valleys and all of the things that are coming, because it wasn't my first rodeo, starting something. And it's real fun to get it going. But then at some point you kind of hit the place of scary, and it just goes,
it's interesting when someone says that to you, right? When they speak it to you, but you're in it, but you don't understand. Right. You don't understand what I'm in. Yeah. So I know John's personality. I could just hear him saying, it's okay, brother. Yeah,
God's going to get you through it.
God's going to get you through it.
You're like, but you don't understand. Yeah.
Right.
He's just go for it, dude. Yes. So anyway, so we went for that. And in the very same sense with the business, which has really blown us away in a lot of ways. Because for so many years, we thought as though we had to somehow perform or work towards or get another notch in our belt, or if you would, get the next color in my belt that I have to attain to climb the ladder, if you would, of spirituality in Christendom.
Yes.
And it's a trap in a lot of ways. But no doubt I was kind of led that way. And I'm grateful for the path, and I'm grateful for the School of Ministries and the Bible colleges and all the things that I've done to try to be a pastor. But what I've come to find out is that I can actually still be a pastor and pastor people, and I can also run a business. And that intersection for me and Katie, my wife, is very enjoyable. I mean, it's actually, it gets me so fired up where in the morning let's go. It's just super, because every day is ministry. And really, if you're listening to this or if you're watching this, just remember that you don't need to have some title. You could be Plumber Bill. You can be, Susan, the lady who fills the bags at Publix or Safeway or wherever you work. It's wherever we stand, that place God has given us to be able to reflect him and give him glory. Right.
Yeah. Well, you and I spoke about this, and Jared knows because he's here part of our jiu-jitsu academy. And that's how Song and I feel. But with both of our businesses, it's just live to honor God in all that we do. And I find it less stressful being in ministry, owning a business, than actually being a pastor. Did you find that to be true as well?
I can agree with that. I mean, this might sound a little crash, but it's true. Because when you're running volunteers,
yes,
it's almost, the illustration I always use is a balloon. And it's very hard as a pastor of a church. Every week you stand up and you say a lot of the same things. And it's like taking a balloon with no helium in it and hitting it up, and then it falls down. And the next week it hits your hand again. You got to hit it up. Come on, guys, sign up come on, guys, let's go, get over here and let's help, everybody help. And, the difference between that and what we do now at IKON is, hey, if we don't like you, bye,
Yeah.
And if you don't like us, you can leave too,
Yes.
because the rest of us are going to have a great time together, and we're going to just glorify the Lord, whether you're here or not,
Yeah.
So not to be a jerk and sound like a, but that's the reality. And it takes a lot off to think that we can still do the things God has given and gifted us with to be able to bless him and others. And now we have many people in our care, families that are on our payroll and things that we feel very responsible to, not only to make the payroll, but to build wealth together and to actually enjoy life together, be optimistic and really glorify God,
Yeah. And I loved what Keith was sharing with me. We had some time at the table, I'll call it, just kind of like what we're doing here right now. And he pulls out his iPad that he carries everywhere with him. And he was out there every morning. I'd come down and I'd have coffee ready, and he'd be already at his iPad, just ready to go. But you were talking about these beatitudes that you run your business on and these core principles. And you also even showed me a part of a message that you're going to be preaching, to your, is it a yearly staff meeting or whatever?
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, this is what we do in ministry.
Yeah.
And it should, like you said, it should look no different, whether it's in your home or whether it's in your business or whether you're leading a church or you're serving in, the cafe at a church. This is how we do life as Christians.
Yep, that's
right. We live it out. We don't just show up to church on Sunday and then, live like the rest of the world the other days of the week. This is what we do every day.
What you see is what you get.
That's right.
And actually, I would actually even go as far as saying this, that being a Christian, not this is advertised maybe, but being a Christian that is a business owner is far more difficult than being a pastor of a church. Because when you're intersecting in a world of commerce where people can give you a little 5-star on Google or not,
yes,
it gets dirty fast. And when you're intersecting with finances, with friends and family or whatever, anybody, I think it's a very hard thing because you got to be above reproach. I mean, not that you don't have to do that being a pastor, of course you have to be, but I just find it's a lot more exposed because I'm all over the community. Pastor, as many times I'm sitting around, I'm just preparing my messages and I'm 20 hours behind a door. I'm full time, 50 hours, 60 hours in the community right now. You see what I mean? It's a way more exposed. So yes. I find it far harder. So, but listen, we just hit 2022. What's today? The 21st? Is that right? Is today the 21st? 22nd.
22nd.
Wow. 22nd. Boom. So days are flying by. And here we are, 22nd of January, 2022. And let's just say I'm blessed that we're on the other side of COVID. But in the heart of COVID, in a weird God sort of way, he told us to start IKON Windows and Doors, and spoke specifically through Ecclesiastes. And against all odds, we started IKON Windows and Doors. And where it's spelled IKON, but all we did was actually drop the E, because EIKON is the Greek word for image. So he is the image of the invisible God. Colossians 1. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him and through him, all things were created, both in heaven and on earth, things visible and invisible. Why? They were created by him and for him. He's the head of this is speaking about Jesus Christ. Now that scripture alone has actually driven me as a man, believe it or not. It's one of the first texts I've ever memorized as a young man when I came to Christ. And God decided to use that text and speak to us through that, because that it's Colossians 1:15 through about 17 and 18. It is the most condensed teaching we have on the deity of Jesus Christ. More than that, interestingly enough, after I studied it a little more further, is this was actually a hymn that was used in the early church. But think about this. What more would you want to say to somebody? That he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all. So it's just like right there. It's just, so what we say in IKON is we just simply want to reflect him. We're made in his image. We want to reflect his image to others. So we have things like the golden rule, which would be from the Bible, that we want to treat others as that, the way we want to be treated. And that's how we build our culture within our company. But against all odds, we started this. God just showed up. He showed off. And as he always does, confirming so many things along the way. And, but no doubt fighting for everything, because we live in a very fractured world right now. And in our industry, it's very hard to get anything resin related and with foams and anything chemical related, stuff that comes out of the other parts of the world that we can't source, or because the plants in Texas froze last year, it broke our supply chains. And it's a multitude of items, but navigating through that has been so hard. And I would say probably 8-9 months ago, because we've only been in business for 18 months. And 9 months ago, after just hearing so much negativity, I was running meetings in my own company with, look at what the news says, and it's going to be another 2 more years, and everything's horrible, and now blah blah blah. And this politician's here now, and that happened, and it's just like over and over, and it's like, how well is that? Is that helping?
Yeah.
Right. So I was super challenged, and the Lord just was like, you're done. Like, go against everything. Not that you brush it under the rug and pretend as nothing exists. But why are you going to spend yourself stating the obvious? The world is broken. Mm-hmm. So what the Lord put on my heart was to just create 5 principles. We call them 5 Beatitudes that we lead our staff meetings with on Wednesday mornings. And here's what they are. Then the first one is to be intentional. So be intentional, which is like leadership development in our devotional. So we just do like a Maxwell Devo or something like that. So
this like core foundational values that you operate your business on.
This is our outline. Basically, this is our outline. This is my agenda every Wednesday at 7:30.
Yep.
So we have our staff. We don't open until 8:30, but every Wednesday at 7:30 we open up. And for the staffers that want to be there, they're welcome to be there. They don't get paid. They just show up if they want to be a part of what we're doing, because it's more leadership development instead of let's talk about how bad everything is. So we're being intentional to steward and foster our own souls and our minds to get them focused in the right way, to make sure that the things that I'm thinking about today are going to produce fruit in the next days to come, and years. So be intentional. That's the first one. The next one is be specific. So we're really big in team building and being specific to each team member. Like Mike, the other day when I saw you, man, like you're just hustling, dude. You're like cleaning the dishes the whole time we're up at the mountain. You're cleaning the dishes. I'm sitting on the couch watching you back on, you're cleaning the dish. So, but being specific.
Your back was hurt. Let's just be fair.
Yeah. He karate chopped me. Being specific when you're, have adoration towards someone, even to the Lord, is very important. Not just God, thank you, or hey, Mike, thank you, or it's just not that way. And so we be specific. So we be intentional, we be specific with our team members, and then we be a bridge. So we're being relational. So this is a crazy thing, but I just felt like God said, start doing it. So every meeting, everybody at the table, whoever's there gets to just put a name in the hat, and we make a phone call. And it could be to a vendor. It could be to a contractor. It could be to a homeowner or anybody we've interacted with. We've got, 600 contacts in the last 18 months or whatever in the database. So whoever somebody says, we go, okay, boom. And we put on speakerphone. Hey, it's Team IKON. Hey, we're all here together, blah, blah, blah. We just wanted to just say, we're grateful for you. Thank you. You're our partner, whatever it is. We just say a lot of kind things to them. And I'm telling you, we have showed God has showed up on that phone call, Jared, so many times. I mean, it's every time my jaw's on the ground. I'll get emails. I'll get follow-up phone calls to say, you have no clue how perfect and timely that phone call was. And it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That's all. It's very short. And that little shift right there changes the day, not only for the person we're calling and what's around them, but for our team. So that's number 3.
So you have be intentional.
Yep.
Be specific.
Yep.
And be a bridge.
Be a bridge.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what we're reaching out because we're really just, that's all we are. We feel as though our company is simply a bridge from the vendor to the end user.
Let me, I just want to interject here. How many other companies are doing that right now? Right. Just to be able to once a week pick up the phone.
Right.
And actually talk to someone and thank them. Yep. Not on social media. Hey, you're awesome. Here's your 5-star Google, blah, blah, blah. Like you were just saying.
Exactly.
You pick up the phone and you wait for God to show up.
That's right.
Right. And again, I can imagine because I've done these calls before where someone will pick up and go, you don't know, I was having the most horrible day. And that phone call came in.
That's right. So it's amazing. I mean, it's just the fruit from that phone call is extraordinary.
Yeah.
So that's number 3. Number 4 is to be brief. That's our announcements for the company. Be brief. I'll teach you the ABCs of announcements one time. That's for another podcast.
Is it possible for you to be brief?
Maybe not me, but at least other people doing the announcements.
Yeah, everyone else be brief.
Because I got to make sure that I can say everything. But then we close with just be creative. Because we want to be in an atmosphere, and really anybody, if you study teams and you study vision and mission, there has to be inclusion. If there's not inclusion with your team members and you have no buy-in, you might as well just kiss them goodbye. They're really not part of your group. They're not part of your team. They're not on your tribe, in your corner. So we really make sure everybody can bring things to the table and everything matters. So we just say, be creative. So we just open it up. Any suggestions? What'd you see in the field? Show us a photo. What's going on? How are you doing? And it's just a great time to throw it all in and sort it out. Not to say we're using anything you say, but we might. And if we do, you're getting rewarded.
Yeah. So it gives everyone a voice.
Exactly. So that's kind of our B attitudes, if you will, just those 5 that are just leading us. And we've been doing it for 9 months probably. And it's as many times as I wanted to just stop it and say, we're doing a production meeting. We're going to talk about all of our jobs right now and how terrible everything is. Each week I just show up with that.
Stay the course.
I just stay the course with that. Just, God, you're going to keep coming. It's all right. It's all going to be all right. You're going to cover us. What about the lawsuit? It's okay. God's got it handled. Don't worry about it. Well, what about this person? Don't worry about it. Well, I'm freaking out over here. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
What are we going to be led by fear?
Well, you think about it. That's just how we navigate the world, right? When God's got us on course for mission, right? The world starts throwing these curveballs at us,
right,
to get us off track, right? I call them like little exits off the highway.
Yeah.
Right. And so the same with you, right? Yeah, hey, these challenges and issues are always going to be there.
That's right.
But this is the course that God has us on.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to deter from that. And this is that's beautiful.
So good. So, we're actually kicking off a nonprofit. It's a we haven't really even talked about it at all because we haven't launched it. We're fixing to launch it hopefully February 2nd, I think.
And that was 20. Such a Florida word.
Yeah.
I'm fixing.
Fixing it. Yeah, we're going to fix it up. That's what we do. We do grits and eggs. We fix them. So, but we're going to launch. It's called Roads to Rooftops. And really what it is, it's a collision from business to business that creates a mobilization tool for outreach. That's a more parachurch related, but it's construction related because we as construction companies can buy the product down and pass it along to the people in need in our community that really need it. And one thing that Katie and I have found out is that it's hard to mobilize funds from church to church, and it can get messy. So if you have one tool that brings that together, boom,
got it.
That's our heart. So we'll see how that goes.
Hey, bro, we're gonna take a quick break here. As always, listeners, we're being fueled by Jocko Discipline Go tonight. And we're going to pick back up on roads to rooftops when we come back after this break.
Let's go.
Hey, gentlemen, we just wanted to take a pause in this podcast. And again, thank you for listening in. And we wanted to share some resources and companies that we hope that you'll find will add value to you and into your world. And one of these companies that we'd like to tell you about is Origin Maine. And if you've never heard of Origin Maine, their products are made right here in America, and their mission is to bring American manufacturing back to the U.S. We love what this company stands for. If you have not heard of Origin Maine, go over to their website and check them out, originmaine.com. And I've been there. I've been to their facility, and I've seen what they're doing with some of the towns in Maine, revitalizing communities and just making a positive difference in their area. So what we also love about them is also that their products are superior. They're very high quality, and literally we're fueled by Jocko Discipline Go, which is one of their products. We carry all of their supplement lines here at our Jiu-Jitsu Academy, and we see that it makes a difference in the people that use their products. I personally use it. I use Joint Warfare because I'm an old guy, and their krill oil, and then especially during this time of season, I use their Cold War as well. And they just came out with a new pre-workout that's pretty awesome. And so we know that you won't be disappointed. They also have a full line of jiu-jitsu gis and apparel. I've got a pair of Origin boots that are just indestructible. I love them, and they're comfortable. And again, they're made right here in America. And so as a listener and supporter of this podcast, you get a special 10% discount off of any product sold at originmaine.com. So head over to originmaine.com, and that is ORIGINMAINE.com, and enter Uncommon10 to receive 10% off of all of your purchases. That's Uncommon10. Thank you, and we'll get back to the episode. All right, we're back with Keith Gallo. He's giving us a window into his business and into his life. No pun intended.
Delivering a clear difference.
So we were talking about roads to rooftops here just a second ago, and you want to pick back up on that? And then I think Jared had some questions.
You know, before we just leave the IKON thing, which is like this is like the first time I'm even stopping to really talk about it. To be honest, like there's so much that's happened, and as I was just mentioning just a moment ago about the being a pastor and then being a business owner and things of that nature, how you can really just lead the same sort of way, really as a dad, as a husband, a father, leading, right? That's what this world needs, is somebody to just say, I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to show up and just, that's it. We're going to take the next step, you know? And so really one of the things that we've kind of like just created culture along the way, we just say that we're in the people business. We just happen to offer windows and doors, because that's really what it is. It's people. That's what it's about. So, I mean, we'll go to the farthest edge of the earth to try to put a smile on somebody's face. I kid you not. I'll send chocolates. Sent my mom with a box of chocolates and a bouquet of flowers the other day for some elderly gal that was a little soured. And why didn't I get my stuff? Ma, hey, just go ahead and go put a smile on her face. Because to us, we're in the people business, because God's in the people business. Yeah. That's why we are. So anyway, I wanted to mention that before to cut. But, with what God's doing and this nonprofit we started right before the end of the year, it was a dream that we had before that predated even planting the church. That was more of a community-based just collision of business to business, that would help support the affairs of the community, and in a very intentional way, and not just like, let's talk about it. And, we were mentioning this the other day. Remember, hey, this place is so gorgeous. Let's go buy some land and build a house. I've said that in every place I've ever visited, because I only go to pretty, nice places, and things of that nature. I'm like, no, I don't want to go to some vacation that's lame. So it's in the same sort of sense. There's a lot of people that are dreamy and, oh, this is such a cool idea. And, well, put it in action. How do you start to take the steps to put it in action? And that's really where we feel Roads to Rooftops is going to come into play. And as we just roll that out this year and we're starting a podcast, because we want to create both a microphone and a speaker just for our community. It's one of the most unique communities in all the U.S.
What, Space Coast?
The Space Coast is,
yeah. I've been, we used to go down there a lot for the pastors' conferences,
right.
And seeing those rockets take off. If you guys have not been to the Space Coast down in Florida, it's just an amazing place to go watch. And I'm sure they're launching rockets now left and right with all of the new businesses and technologies that are starting to launch. No pun intended.
They're actually saying that in the next by 2026, which is right around the corner, in the next 4 years, they'll be launching one rocket every day and a half off of the KSC pads.
Gee whiz.
Which is not, like, unprecedented. It's like 100 a year. I mean, it's just crazy, and it's a sight to see if you've never seen it. So we're really blessed to be in that community. And, we're just expecting the unexpected because we really believe that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly more than we can ever ask or imagine. So part of that segue into the Roads to Rooftops, and we're sharing this now with our community, is this week from today, actually, next Saturday. We do an annual awards thing with our staff. Instead of doing Christmas parties and blah, blah, blahs, all the hustle and bustle, we just have an awards, and we just affirm people and confirm people and just, again, edify and build that team atmosphere that is so, so needed in so many places. And we're doing it on the tallest rooftop in the city, on the Melby in downtown Melbourne. So we got a nice little corner piece. So we're going to actually announce to our staff and everything like that, this nonprofit. That's like our announcement night and things. So it's a week away. Come on, babe.
Who
benefits?
Got that ready. Who benefits from Roads to the Rooftop?
So I believe everyone benefits, because from the business to business perspective, what we're really going for is I'm going to say like-mindedness. So there's a lot of things that we could probably say we're like-minded about, but think about this. In Acts chapter 2, it speaks very clearly that the early church had all things in common.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yep.
When's the last time you had all things in common with like 10 people? I mean, think about this. So, but we're talking thousands of people. Why? There was a humility. There was this unity. There was a common unity, right? This community. It was a common unity. And so we think from Roads to Rooftops, everyone benefits, because we want to pull people in, yes, that are maybe specific to like-mindedness, because business to business, as far as we need to think the same. Even Simon Sinek will tell you, don't enter into business with anybody unless you think the same. And he's talking products and services, even selling things. If you're selling something to somebody and you're going, I don't know if we should do this, you might not want it.
Well, you and I talked about this. That's a biblical principle. Don't be unequally yoked.
There you go. Exactly.
Right? So that's
exactly right.
That's, and I say this, there's a lot of great tools and authors out there and motivational speakers, but
get them.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying a lot of that comes from underlying biblical principles. It's no secret. If you pick up the Bible and read,
all of it does.
Yes.
All of it. Let's just be real. Every self-help book, everything that is somewhere on a New York Times bestseller, is, if it has any fruit at all, is coming from the Bible.
Repackaged. Yeah.
That's right. It's
yes, for sure.
So good. But man, I am so blessed. So yeah, everybody benefits from that. We really believe that. The community benefits, the business to business engagement. And again, we want, the podcast is going to be a sounding board. And that's really where we feel as though it's not just some parachurch, whatever. It's very intentional that let's sit and talk about it, because it's going to be construction related on some levels, because we have a lot of guys that we do business with that love the Lord and are leading their businesses in the same manner like you. And, we want to have those conversations, but even greater than that, we want to be pulling in people from L3 Harris and from the different organizations, Northrop Grumman, and different people that are in this massive city of commerce, to sit across a table and ask a question like this: what was the worst day you've ever had at the workplace? Like, I want to ask the VP of L3 Harris that question. That's going to be a lot of fun, because it's going to be right down the street. He's going to come for lunch. We're going to sit in the podcast. And we're going to shoot that for an hour, right? So that's what we're hoping to, just like not just be all churchy, and we're going to have this crossover like you guys are doing, right? With Bomb Jitsu. You guys are like reaching out all over the place. There's massive crossover, right?
Yes.
It's awesome. So we're hoping to do a similar sort of thing. Everybody wins, Well, that was a long answer. Sorry.
I like it.
No. So, kind of like circling back to church planting and then starting your own business, kind of wanted to just talk about, to you, what does that faith look like? Because I mean, some of my early days with ministry, I knew friends that would do church planting, and I was like, no way, because I like to control the money, right? I like to control to be able to provide it for my family, and then also starting a business, right? You have to have funding, you have to figure out staffing, you have got to figure out a business plan, you have to figure out, all the things that come into play with that, and like that takes a leap of faith, right? And so, like, well, what does faith look like for you? Not only with the church planting nonprofit, but also starting the company.
I think so. Yeah, obviously some things are easier than other things, right? Like, there's a few big things. Who am I going to marry? It's kind of a big decision, and how many kids are we going to have? And where are we going to live? And there's a couple big things, and in the same sort of sense, when God tells us to do things, he could say, hey, go work in a youth group. Go help with the youth. They need help. Or go clean dirty, whatever it is. That is a step of faith, no doubt. But when you take you and your family and 0 people and you paratroop into a community where 0 people and you expect God to show up, that's a lot different than signing up for youth group. You see what I mean?
Sure.
So that for us was the Lord saying yes. And then it was looking for green lights, because Proverbs tells us that there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. So wisdom says, I need you and I need you and I need other people to say, help me to make sure that I'm reading this right, because I have blind spots. Mm-hmm. So we did a whole lot of that. And especially with planting the church. Of course, dad, father-in-law, like just going right down through the list, like, pastor, are we getting green lights? Like, is God saying it? Because if these people who really love, this is what we found out. The people who we love and we know love us are in our corner. Mm. And if they're saying no to something we think God's saying yes to, we might want to really be considering what they're saying. You know what I mean?
That's difficult, isn't it?
It's very hard.
Especially if you have your mind set on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've had to actually bow down to that. Because we, like you mentioned earlier, after we handed the church over, we felt as though God was saying, plant another church. Mm. And we were like, okay, we're just gonna do this our whole life. This is crazy. Like, oh my gosh, we're living off 0 funds. And what is this, poverty ministry? Yeah. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, what
do
you do for a living? I'm a professional church planter.
Oh, yeah. Where are we going with this? And really what I had to watch for, it's one thing to take a step of faith and to jump into something, but it's another thing to man up and look around you and consider, okay, not just my view and my vision and what I want to see get done, but what's going on around me with my family and my wife and my friends. And is there fruit happening with what I'm doing as a leader? Because I was challenged with that. And somewhere in the church plant in about 2018, my wife's hair was falling out of her head. Yeah. I'm not kidding. Like falling out of her, like that happens. She was so stressed. So we just hired somebody to come in and try to come rescue us. And we did a ministry called Pointman that was started by a bunch of Calvary guys. And this guy, Tripp Kimball, who's a blessed brother, I need to call him.
Well, no,
Tripp.
Well, no, he came. Tripp. He came to Calvary Flagler.
He helped you guys a little, right?
I said the only way I'd come in is if Pointman came in.
That's right. So,
which they were awesome. And just so you know, Pointman is from a world's perspective, they're like an auditing company.
They are.
Right. They come in and look at all of the processes, all the people.
That's right.
And start to write up.
That's right.
Their assessment.
That's it.
The financials, everything and it's again, in the multitude of counselors, there's wisdom.
That's right.
And so it wasn't just Tripp. He would take that information back and discuss it with other pastors. Yeah. And some of the information that he would feed back to me, I'd be like, oh man, that hurts. Right.
That's right. That's right.
But it was truth.
That's
and I know they were telling me this because they love me.
That's right.
And so, yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if I knew that part of the story.
That's tough because, and I haven't said that, I've really ever talked a lot about that because it's just a lot of things you just try to pretend like they didn't exist. But that was a hard move for me. And that was one of the reasons that we started praying about giving the church over. And we did. And God, the guy's still pastoring it. Billy is still up there. I just talked to him the other day. And so God's still working in there and so much happening with that. But
you know what's interesting,
blessed,
Keith, and I know Jared can relate to this because Jared and I have a lot of conversations. We spend a lot of time together. But, whether you're running a business or leading your family or leading a ministry, there's a sanctification process that's happening within not only yourself, but within the organizations themselves.
Let's talk about that for a little.
I'm just saying, because if I could go back and speak to the Michael Bone from 15 years ago with the wisdom that I have today, there'd be a lot of different decisions that were made, but God allowed them for a purpose and for, his reasons. Yeah. And so I'm thankful for him. But not a lot of the things that he allowed were comforting. They were painful. And I look back and even, back, when we took over Calvary Flagler, and I write about this again in the book, that, I did some bad leadership things that I just didn't think about the people that were involved. I was so on mission for what God had me. God wants me to do this. And I was so horse blinded to what I felt like he was calling me that I almost dismissed caring for the flock that he had me shepherding over. Yeah. And I did it early in my business career too, where it's like, I'm just going to go out and smash all this business and at the expense of employees, at the expense of vendor, whatever. I just would run over everyone. And if you couldn't keep up with me, it's like, I don't know if you listened to that podcast, right? The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill.
The pile of bodies.
Yeah, the pile of bodies. But, I didn't come out and say it because I was more passive aggressive about it, right? Yeah. I would just do it and would just like, well, that's just the way it is. I'm just going to keep going. But in retrospect, I see the error in taking that kind of stance. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that God allowed it for me to learn a lesson through it.
I love that you said that.
But even with kids,
it is. You're right. These seasons and it can be organizations, it can be whatever.
Families, kids, wives, like my marriage.
That's right.
We have Mr. Dave, at our house. He's my spiritual dad. Yeah. He's been married for over 40 years. Wow. And it came to a big shock to me that he still argues with his wife. Right. It's I'm like, dude, you guys haven't figured this out after 40 years of marriage. But it gave me much hope that, man, the little discussions or, disagreements that I might have with my wife, that, hey, we've made a commitment. We're going to get through it.
That's right.
Versus, my family of origin where everyone's got divorced when someone got mad at each other.
Right. Right.
So, but, we talk about this and, you've had 2 more kids since the last time we spent time together. Yeah. And just the process of parenting, you're parenting your youngers better than you did with your older kids today because of the wisdom that you've gained. Yeah. So I want to talk to you because I mentioned it earlier on the podcast that you had come up with this discipleship plan for your kids that I really, I admired, and you're still working through it, and that's it. We try our best. Okay, Lord, we're going to take a step for the direction that we feel you're calling us to. But
it's an important thing, as a, I didn't want to come off of what Jared said there for a second too, because I think this whole thing of God said to, and God told me so, and I'm going, because we all have friends that are like, God said to do this. Mm-hmm. I've always been very careful to say, not come out and just say that, and I think that actually there's wisdom in that, because a lot of times you just, God said to do that, and then
just to justify
right
a decision,
but more the approach for us is always, we really feel as though God is saying to do this. Do you think he is? Because that's more of it. We want to be humble enough to subject ourselves to the people that love us around us, and that's an important thing. But, with the kiddos, it's it's a battle. I got 14, I got 9 on an airplane to Denver over here on his 9th birthday, trying to just go ahead and squeeze it for what it's worth. He actually said, I got 2 more hours out of my birthday because the time change, this guy's so good. So that's Kai. And then, Ava, she's 12 and Judah's 5. And it's like, I call them their honey badgers. We're going to actually be writing a book. We have a kid's book that's coming out, and it's good. How to Train a Honey Badger. That's the title. So don't steal it if you're watching this or listening. And make sure you guys subscribe. Smash the subscribe button. But this, one of my favorite authors is Mark Batterson. He, if you've read his books, a lot of them sound similar. But, In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day is phenomenal. Wild Goose Chase, Soul Print. He wrote Prayer Circles. But then he wrote Play the Man. That's the book. And in that book, it was just about being the man. Now, not being like manly. Oh, I'm so strong. Look at me. Pick stuff up. I'm a strong guy. Look at me. No, not like that. Like being a real man. Being a man that God actually desires and wants to use. A man that has courage, but one that also has a countenance that is geared and wired towards God's heart. You know, it's one that has drive, but it's also one that's a disciple. You know what I mean? It's not, I can just drive and only drive. It's no, I need somebody to help steer. Right. And I'm going to subject myself to discipleship. So it's a lot of all that. And so he kind of wrote, I read that book and he had this thing. He called.
We say honor, integrity, strength, and grace.
Okay. So where's that? Is that part
of the Brave book?
Yeah.
You know?
So there you go.
Yeah.
Boom. So, I mean, see, I love that. That just flows so well. And that's what God desires. Not look at how awesome and strong and how much money I have and I'm a ruler. I'm Lord Gallo, like that, you know, or Lord Bowen. What's your last name?
Gibson.
Lord Gibson. You know, I mean, that sounds actually pretty nice. You know, it really does.
I'll take it.
But in this book, he just kind of outlined this like father to son covenant, and it had 3 parts. It was very simple. It had a spiritual engagement. It had a intellectual engagement, and it had a physical engagement. And basically what it was is that, you know, Mark's heart in the book was take your kid and go get a tent and go get out in the wilderness somewhere where there's nobody, disconnect, and then share what your heart with about where they are. So he's saying about, you know, each kid is different. Could be 12, 13, 14. It's like the mitzvah, so becoming a man, you know, and it's like that. And I'm not a kid anymore. I'm putting away childish things now. And now I'm becoming a man, like Paul said. Yeah. And less video games, more intellectual and spiritual engagement. And enough out with all of this stuff because everybody else is playing it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. We're different. Our family is different than that family over there. It doesn't matter what they do. This is what we do. So it was 12 books. That was the intellectual, hand selected by Dad. The entire New Testament. That was a spiritual engagement. And then a Spartan race that we never got to do. Bummer. Because of COVID. Yeah. So we're kind of like, you know, that was really the only thing. I think we missed one book, but it's a neat thing. Me and Mike were talking about that and just being intentional as a dad, as a man, as a leader. You have to be intentional.
Let me ask you this, Keith, because, you know, I think a lot of guys in this position, and Jared and I have had, again, some offline conversations about this. Some guys might make the excuse, well, I don't know how to camp, or, you know, I'm not in shape enough to do a Spartan race. I don't know how to hunt. I don't know how to surf, whatever.
And some guys are even afraid to admit it too.
Right. Yeah. And that's the humility aspect. Yeah. And here's what I've learned. And, you know, Ryan Mickler was really, Order of Man podcast. He was really instrumental in helping me to just give me a kick in the rear end to get this thing started. But what I've realized about guys like Ryan or Bedros Koulian, you know, some of the guys that, you know, that were kind of instrumental in helping to motivate me, were that they surround themselves with other men that are doing things that they might not know how to do. Right. So, you know, I don't hunt. You know, I live in Colorado. I just moved back here, but I don't hunt a lot. Right. You know, so if Caleb wants to hunt, I'm probably going to hire someone that knows how to hunt, right? And say, hey, we're going to go together because Dad hasn't hunted in a couple of years and I don't want to go out there and blow my toe off, whatever, you know, just whatever, right? I'm just saying, you know, like that's just, I'm admitting, right? Yeah, well, you look manly. You know how to hunt. You got a beard, right? Yeah, you got flannel on. Yeah, like I choke people in the gym. That's, you know, that's my vocation, right? But, you know, what do you say about that? You know, if you come across something that, you know, that might be a little difficult, or have you experienced that in your life where you're like, you know, I want to really do this, but I've never done it before and it's scary, and, you know, like a Spartan race. I mean, that's scary. I took my wife on a Spartan race and she was like, I don't know. And I can't get over the wall. And I said, you know what? I'll help you get over the wall. You know, like, I don't know if I can carry the sandbag. I said, I'll carry your sandbag. Yeah. Like we're going to doing this together.
Well, this trip was kind of like that. There's a lot of unknowns. Obviously, you know, I had called you multiple times and bothered you during times that you couldn't talk about, hey, whatever. But like, you know, even today, my daughter, Ava, she was bawling her eyes out just at the bottom of that. What happened? What's going on? Yeah. I can't get what's wrong? where are your poles at? I almost got lost up in the mountains and the snow was up to my neck. And I was like, what, where are your poles? I lost them up there. Where? Like point, kind of thing. And
this is like on the bunny run too.
Yeah.
Right?
On the bunny run. And it's like in the little, I'm like, where, how, well, she decided.
She went off trail.
She did.
We did.
Yeah, she went back country.
When we were going,
and just kind of like seeing that go down and seeing, her just the way that she was just kind of, I did something wrong. I don't want to talk about it. As you just mentioned, guys especially don't want to talk about things that need to be talked about. But she felt lonely, like I'm out here all alone, I'm going to die or whatever. And I was like, this is what a great opportunity to be able to coach my daughter. Because that's really what I'm looking for. Every single time I see an opportunity, which we should always be looking, how can I metaphorically or take this picture like Jesus did to coach, train, build up, edify, and lead this particular individual? I don't know why I just said that. Why did I go down that road? You asked me, you said something.
Well, no, if guys are looking to lead their kids or, in a situation, it might be difficult.
I can't do it. That's right. I can't do it.
But you just said, you pointed right to Jesus, which a lot of times the first thing that we forget to do is to just say, well, how did Jesus handle circumstances like this? Because the disciples came to him and said, how did you do this? Yeah. We don't know how to do this.
Yeah. It's so good. Every failure is fertilizer.
Wow.
Every seemingly failure that's just happening in life is fertilizer for God to use in the soil of our heart if it's tender, if it's ready to be used. So that moment, she'll never forget. Because I gave her great. She's like, it's $100. I don't care what it is. I'm not going back up. No, you're going to come with me. And I took her by the hand. Just keep pointing. You show me. And then eventually it was like 30 yards up the thing. And she's like, I'm not going up there. I said, it's okay. Stay right here.
Yeah. And
I kind of got closer and I saw him. But for her, in her mind, she'll never forget that. And I literally said, I asked her, what was the verse of the day today? I started talking about fear because she was flipped out. She was freaking out. Fear's a liar. Fear is driving you in it. And that's not what God's up to. God's not into that. You look around you, kind of a thing. I'm here with you, and it's just that is a builder, dude, in such a huge way.
You had a decision to make at that moment.
And I didn't even answer your question.
You could have freaked out. No, you did. I think you did. I think there was some good fruit that came out of what you just said. You had a decision to make right there. You could have freaked out. And I've seen guys do this. What do you mean you lost your poles?
Yeah.
Where?
Right.
Go up there and get them.
There you go.
Freaking out on their kids about a stinking $40 set of poles.
Right. Seriously.
Versus how important are these poles?
Right.
And is that really showing the grace of God?
It's huge.
Because they're looking at us as parents. Employees are looking at us as leaders.
It's true.
Right? Wives are looking at us as husbands and saying, he says he follows Jesus. But there's nothing in his life or this moment right now that we're experiencing that reflects that. And listen, we fall short, we fail, obviously. But at that point, you have to come back and humble yourself and say,
Jared never falls short ever.
No, he's perfect.
Oh, no.
That's why he's here. He just keeps us in line, bro. People are like, yeah, you and Jared work good. I said, yeah, he keeps me in line, bro. He's awesome. But I think that was a great example. And I think it's going to speak to a lot of guys that are listening in and, just look at every moment.
Yeah, I think for the guy, like you're saying, like, I can't do the camping thing. I can't do the gun thing. I can't do the blah, 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 whatever. It's like, okay, well, what can you do? Enough with I can't. What can we do? And it's like, sometimes it's just try it. And not everybody is wired with lighting their own fuse so they can propel themselves forward. Some people need they need somebody to do it for them.
Yeah. A
lot of guys do, I'm not one of those people. I'm usually lighting other people's fuses. Let's go, guys, And it's important that we do push and encourage because you have the gifting of, I'm going to go light these guys' fuses as well. They need you. That it's like the body, right? Every single part matters. And somebody needs a fuse lighter. Might not say it that way in the Bible in Colossians or in Corinthians, but for sure it's there if you read it in the Message version. It's just, one's an eye, one's an ear, one's a foot. It's part of the body of Christ. I'm just calling it a fuse lighter. Sorry.
Well, good. I think we're wrapping up for final thoughts, Jared. Is that right?
Yep.
So we do a thing called final thoughts here,
Okay.
Keith.
Okay.
So we're going to wrap up with a final thought from you, that some wisdom that you can drop on guys that are listening,
Oh, man.
that you may have wished you heard when you were younger, or something that you've just recently learned that you go, this is something that the guys would need to hear at this point of where we're at in the world.
All right. Yeah. So final thoughts. So you mentioned earlier, if I could speak to my former self, maybe rewind the clocks 15 years, whenever. You actually mentioned it this weekend because it is so important, is our words. Proverbs 10:19 says, in the multitude of words, sin is unavoidable. And that is a real reality because words bring life. Proverbs 4:23 says that to guard our hearts. I think I got that right. Guard our hearts, because from our heart comes all things. And above all things, guard your heart. And it's so important for us to do that, because from there it becomes these words that we give life to that will either build or destroy. Words have that power. And all too many times, I can even think back maybe in the last, for sure, couple weeks where shouldn't have said that, or why did I say it that way? Or maybe shouldn't have never said that, because we will never, ever have to apologize for a word unspoken, ever. And that's a valuable lesson. And that I've had to learn, unfortunately. I've had to stand up in front of congregations and apologize for things that I've done as a pastor. That's a humbling thing. When people leave your church for things you say that were for sure probably not in the Bible, and more preference driven and more personality driven than actually purposefully driven by God's Spirit. More of what Keith wanted instead of what Christ wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Not great. So that's the biggest thing for me, is just to be mindful and careful with who is with you. I mean, listen, if the boys are around, hey, listen, you're gonna talk a little different. Things are gonna be but the folks you're with, be careful, because you can build or you can destroy with just one word. Done.
You'll never have to apologize for a word that's not spoken.
Yeah.
And that's a good final thought.
Yeah.
Well, bro, I just want to thank you for coming on the podcast, and just so good seeing you
Love
and your
you,
family.
dude.
I know we're going to hook up again here in the future. We're talking about doing maybe a little father and son trip with Jared and his son. Maybe do a little mountain climb here in the summertime. So I look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. I got to go get some rehab on and get this back in order, and then we'll be back over and see y'all.
Awesome. Amen, bro. Good having you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Super
coming.
blessed to be here. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.